What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Corner Podcast, the show where I bring on guests from all different backgrounds to talk all the things mental health. I'm your host, Harry Potvin, and today I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Mandy Wong Oultram. Mandy is an award-winning personal trainer who has been featured in both local and national press. She loves to share her knowledge of nutrition and training to help people develop life-changing habits and to help many women reinvent their confidence within themselves. Mandy was such a blast to talk to, and I really want to thank her again for coming on and having this discussion with me. Now, before we get started on today's episode, guys, you know the drill. If you're listening, please like, comment, share, subscribe, give 5 stars if you're on that podcast platform. Share with someone who might want to hear this episode. It's a really great one, and I can't wait for you to listen. I'll talk to y'all very soon. Have a great rest of your day. Peace. We're good to go. Mandy, what's going on? Thank you so much for joining the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a good day today.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that. So before we get too into anything, I actually wanted to get to know you a little bit better. So my first question for you is what inspired you to leave your career in graphic and web design and then pursue a career in the fitness industry?
Well, I actually went through a really stressful event in my life where I had bought a new build property with my husband, and what basically happened was we had problems with the house. Probably around about 8 years into living there, a boundary wall outside just where our garden was had collapsed, and what happened led to like 3 years legal battle with the construction company that built our house. And during that time, I kind of started going to the gym because I was also getting married. So I got into fitness when I hired a personal trainer to help me get fit and ready for my wedding. But what I didn't realize was there was just so much he was helping me with mentally, and it actually really helped me with the legal battle because it was such a stressful event. And at the gym, I saw myself getting stronger, not just physically, but also mentally too, to the point that I just felt like I could actually see it through. And I just didn't really want to be at home because at home was kind of like the sight, and I could see this wall constantly. And that made me really enjoy going to the gym because it was almost like my escape, the one time I have in a day where I didn't have to think about work. I didn't have to think about this stressful events that's happening in my garden. And I could just focus on what I felt was the only thing I had control over. And my personal trainer, through helping me, had really inspired me, and I got to a point where it was no longer a chore to go to the gym and work out. It was something that I just loved doing, and it was helping me. I could see how it was changing my body and it was changing my life for the better. So then that's kind of like how I got into fitness and how I kind of like made the decision that there could be a career in it for me. And I just decided to kind of like pursue it as a kind of like as a new business for me, and that's what I did, and the rest was history.
That's awesome. So when you first decided to drop your job and then go into fitness, was it a tough transition for you, or was it kind of just natural because of your previous experience with fitness?
No, it was a really tough transition because I basically jumped into the deep end where I literally just handed in my notice at work. I had planned it, obviously, because 6 months prior to me handing in my notice, I started training. Well, I started training to become a personal trainer about a year before I handed in my notice. But while I was on holiday in the summer, I decided to circle a date in my diary where I would actually just go into work, hand in my notice, and start my new career. So when I basically started my new business, FlexFit, I had no clients. I had I didn't really have any savings actually. I had a new mortgage because obviously we sorted the legal battle had to be solved and the construction company decided to settle. We had got the house to a state where we could actually put it on the market to sell it. So we had just moved house, had a new mortgage, and it was quite risky, but I felt that to really give it my all, I had to kind of like free myself, and it had to be the one thing I had to concentrate on. So yeah, definitely a tough transition, especially as a new personal trainer with no experience on the market.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I love that story because like that first initial jump into anything that you want to do is so terrifying, and a lot of people don't do it and just stay in that comfort zone because of that. So the fact that you were able to do that and push through the, oh, I don't have any clients, I don't really have any savings, I don't know what to do. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, part of me knew that um, I kind of like, because I just won a legal battle, I kind of like felt that I was almost um, I was a winner. I felt like I'd won, and I couldn't fail in anything else because I'd won this big thing. And I also felt that um, somehow I'd make it work, even if it meant I could, even if it meant I had to get another part-time job. I was willing to do that, but I didn't actually have to do that because things did start to work out for me.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. So I wanted to talk about your fitness regime in particular because this is a big thing that happens with a lot of people, myself included.
Mhm.
We get stuck in this cycle of work and then go home. You kind of just you're on your phone and you're stressed out, or you're eating, you're cooking for people. How can people who are listening like find time in their schedule for physical like exercise or just staying fit when sometimes it doesn't even feel like we have time to think to ourselves?
That's a tough question, but I think it's all about priority. If something is high on your priority list, you will find time for it. And often our health and our body come second. Often, I mean, even I'm sometimes guilty of it. We put family first. We sometimes even put work first. But really, if you think about it, your body is kind of probably and your health is the most important thing because it's the only place you've got to live in your body. And I think if you can like see that it's an important thing, it becomes a lot easier to fit in exercise. And also once you start, because sometimes it can be very hard to start, once you get started and you see progress, naturally it becomes a lot easier. But there are lots of like ways to find ways to make fitness fit into your lifestyle. For example, I personally find exercising first thing in the morning so it's out of the way really help. It sets me up for the day. I actually find I'm so much more productive. I handle stress so much better, and it just makes me feel great and more confident throughout the day to get everything else done. Also, for some people who really struggle to fit it in, maybe looking into scheduling your workout. So if you can't fit it in the morning, just have a look at your day. Maybe like lunchtime where you should be taking a bit of a break would help. Prioritizing and time blocking, which is quite similar to scheduling in. I think a lot of times people multitask, and because like for decades we were told that we should be multitasking, but actually
Hmm.
multitasking makes you even more stressed out. So just focusing on one thing at a time, I think that helps as well.
Yeah, for sure. That whole multitasking thing, man. Like, oh, it's been so ingrained into your brain to keep doing all these different things at once, and you just immediately feel burnout as soon as you even try it. It's such a weird way to live.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even with a workout, it doesn't actually have to be a full hour. People think it has to be a full hour. You can actually adjust it to fit into your day. So if someone only have 20 minutes, that's absolutely fine. If someone really is struggling to find time to work out, even simple things like walking helps. And you can incorporate meetings. So hold your meetings at a time where you could go out for a walk and just do it on your phone as you're walking. There's walking meetings as well when you meet someone and both walk together. There's loads of different ways to do it. It's just about finding something that works for you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think I actually read that in a caption somewhere on Instagram where it was like everyone has this idea that workouts have to be those super intense ones that you see on the internet, or like hour long, 2 hour long, go all out until you throw up kind of workouts. But it's like, it doesn't have to be that crazy.
No, no, definitely not. It's all about finding something that you love doing. And there's so many options there. For me, it's actually weight training. I love training with weights, but for someone else, it might be running. For other people, it might be as simply as just doing something that they can get their kids involved.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. On the other side of that question, because on your website and on your profile, you talk a lot about SMART goals. And,
Mhm.
you know, oftentimes I've done this too. And I know friends who do this. They set a goal that's like stupid. Like, not stupid in the sense like, oh, like, what kind of goal is that? They make a goal that is almost not achievable at all. So then when they like aim for it, they get super discouraged because they'll never meet it. I did it all the time when I was in swimming. Like I would set a goal time that I wanted to achieve that was way beyond what I was, capable of doing. I just kind of, it was super unrealistic. So in terms of SMART goals, like how can we set a goal for ourselves that is both achievable but also challenging at the same time?
I guess, like for example, you mentioned the SMART goals. Actually, following the acronyms helps. So, if we just kind of like go through it, so the S in SMART stands for specific goal. The M is measurable, so that you can actually find ways to track it. The third one is that it's achievable, which is basically what you said. And then it's relevant to you, because that's the key one, because sometimes people think of like random goals and it might not even be something that they want to do. They just seen someone else doing it on Instagram. So it needs to be relevant to your core values. And the final one is having it time-based and being realistic with the time scale you put yourself for it. So often, like, people who come to me might say they wanted to be able to do 10 pull-ups. That probably isn't realistic if they couldn't even do one pull-ups. So maybe a better idea would be to just scale it back and say that the goal is to be able to do one pull-up, and work out roughly like a date that they want to achieve it by, and then kind of like working backwards, so that you can like set yourself mini goals after that. And the reason why I think mini goals is also just as important as the main goal is because you want to set yourself up for success. And if you set yourself mini goals, you'll be able to see your progress a lot quicker, and you'll be able to win a lot sooner. Whereas if you set a goal for like in 3 years time, and you've not got those little milestones, it's really hard to get there, because you might lose interest. Whereas just winning, like little wins, small wins along the way, really helps with motivation, and it helps you see that it is possible for you to get to that main goal.
Yeah, I wish I would use SMART goals when it came to like weight loss. Like
Mhm.
throughout all of university, I was like, okay, I'm going to drop, I want to get to this weight, but I never did the mini goals in between. I just wanted to lose all that weight and get to that point. So I never got to that point cuz my bar was set like ridiculously high. But then I look back at pictures, I'm like, damn, if I had done the mini goals, I would have been so much happier.
Yeah, and it's also about thinking about why as well. Why do you want to achieve that goal? Because until you know your inner why, and you really force it through, it just kind of becomes almost like a label that this is my goal and I want to achieve it. But yeah, when you can kind of like almost assign some emotion to it, it becomes a much more important goal for you.
Yeah, for sure. And it also like I feel like when I have a why for my goal, it gives me that extra motivation. Like I've had goals and then I've thought about halfway through trying to achieve that goal. Like, what is my why? And the answer to that is like, I want to look better for the camera, or like I want to look cooler. And then you think about your why, and if that's your why, you go, what the hell's the point? Like I mean, there's
Yeah.
no motivation behind it if that's your why.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. But then you need to think, well, why do you want to look better for the camera?
Mm.
And then just keep asking you, so just keep going down that rabbit hole, and then eventually you will find the reason, if that goal is important enough for you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You got to keep boiling it down. So, let's say you have an achievable goal, like in the world of fitness, let's say, and you achieve it, and you're there.
Mhm.
You're like in the shape that you want to be, or in the physical shape you want to be. How do we, how do we kind of stay there physically fit? Because I know people who have achieved that goal, and then as soon as they achieve that goal, they go, "That's it, the work's done because my goal's done," and then they just fall right back down. Like how is it when you achieve your goal? How can you maintain it, or at least keep trying to improve? Because a lot of us lose motivation once we've hit that goal.
I'm actually really surprised to hear that, because I always think, well, with my client base, it's almost like people always want more. So once they reach their goal, then they want something else.
Mm,
And I think naturally, as human beings, we do have that. So that brings us back to how important that goal was to you in the first place. And as much as it is about reaching your goal, what's also the most important thing is actually the journey. So if your goal is to, say, drop 2 stone and you've reached it, and you're quite happy to just like go back to how you were because you've reached your goal, then that shows that you've never actually enjoyed the journey. So perhaps you've never found something that you love doing, that actually helps you reach the goal. So I think if you enjoy the journey, and you enjoy how what you did to achieve that goal, naturally you want more. So people who come to me for weight loss, for example, who want to lose 2 stones, once they reach that goal, and if they haven't fallen off the bandwagon and they loved it, they normally come back and say, well, now I've reached my weight loss goal, I want to get stronger, I want to be able to do a pull-up now, and or I want to be able to deadlift 100 kilogram. Yeah, so I think naturally, if you do manage to find something that you love doing to help you get to that goal, automatically when the time comes, you naturally think of more things and more goals that you want to achieve.
right. Yeah. You got to enjoy the process. If someone's going through the process, like how do you personally find enjoyment in it? Like it's kind of a weird question, but like sometimes in the process you don't realize you're in the process, or you're not having fun with it because you're not kind of taking that step back and realizing how far you've come. Like how do you personally like take a step back and live in the moment and realize like, wow, I'm actually making really good progress here?
For example, my workouts and all my clients' workouts, we always track. So in terms of weight training, I'm always tracking how many reps I'm able to do, how many kilograms I'm lifting for each of my exercise. So then when I come to it the following week, I can actually already see, or the next month or year one, I can actually see the history of what I was lifting before and what I'm lifting now. So that's kind of like how you can kind of like stay mindful of where you are in terms of reaching your goals. So that's one way of doing it. So trying to think of a second way. I can't actually remember what the question was actually. Can you repeat it again?
Yeah, of course. I was just wondering, like, how can you take a step back and kind of enjoy the progress that you're doing as opposed to just going through the motion?
Yeah, so it's pretty much what I said, like tracking your progress and just kind of like enjoying the time doing it. And I think naturally, people, when you start making changes and you start seeing yourself, kind of when you get really into it, other people around you also see it as well. And you doing what you're doing also help inspire other people around you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love doing that. We kind of did that in swimming, me and the girl I was dating at the time, because there was this one year in university where the motivation was like the lowest it's ever been, and it's for reasons that, I can't really say, but like the motivation was just not there, and it was like near the beginning of the season and no one showed up to practice. Like the practice averages were super low. And so my ex-girlfriend and I, we were like, we're going to try to go to every single practice to try and motivate people to at least make 6 a week. And I think it was 11, there were 11 available practices. And man, it hurt so much to go to all of them, but then you started to see a trickle of people coming back because they're like, "Oh, well, if they can do all 11, I can at least do 6." So, seeing it trickle down to other people,
Mm.
like for me personally, it's like a huge motivator because it's like, well, if I can inspire people to do it, why would I stop?
Yeah, exactly. And it just makes you feel good about yourself. It's like mums, for example, people with children, seeing how what they're doing in their lifestyle is actually influencing their future. Is I think that's also a huge motivator for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. I believe that most of your clients are actually women and moms. How, like, if there are moms listening at home who are like, you know, super busy, they're either work at home moms or they work outside and then have to come back and take care of their kids and clean the house and do all of these ridiculous chores. Like, how can they start getting to that physical goal that they want to achieve without having too much time on their, you know, on their plate?
I guess getting the children involved is one of them, because that's almost kind of like a lot of their time is probably spent with the children. And if they could think of a way, like going for walks with the children, something they could do in the weekend or in the evening together, that's one way of trying to fit it in. Um, Another way of trying to fit it in is just finding like a time in the day that works best for them and trying to make it as part of their routine, because as soon as people get busy, often exercise becomes the second thought. But whereas if you can like prioritize it and you have a routine, and it's, say for example, about 2 o'clock before they pick the kids up from school, that's their workout time, and they've been doing it for weeks and weeks, it's more than likely they'll stick to it because it's just become a habit. So yeah, I'd say try and build habits into their lifestyle, and as soon as they can, then like for example, young new mums, just trying to start introducing it when the baby's young will also mean that when the child grows up, they can like they kind of like used to that time being their mum's time. And it's not a selfish thing to do, because I think a lot of mums do feel like their working out is quite selfish, but it's really important for people, especially women, to kind of look after themselves too, because if you're not healthy and you're not fit, it's difficult for you to help other people around you. And we want to become good role models for others around us.
Yeah, for sure. I've talked to moms and parents, and that whole self care routine just gets thrown right out the window.
Absolutely.
It's pretty unfortunate.
It is, but it's just so important. And I don't really understand why we can like always put ourselves last. We always do things for others, but very often we don't do enough for ourselves.
Yeah, what is that? Like, why do we do that? That's so upsetting. I'm the same way.
I've no idea, but I think during the pandemic, actually made me think twice about what I do, and I've changed a lot of like my lifestyle and what I do and what's important, because I think I actually think the pandemic has opened a lot of people's eyes, hasn't it, to what's actually really important. A lot of people now don't prioritize work as much. They make sure that they spend more time with their family, and you can just see how many more people are exercising now because they're also prioritizing their health and their fitness. So yeah, in a way, the pandemic's been really tough for a lot of people, but I also think it's been a bit of an eye opener for people as well.
Yeah, no, especially in the topic of health. I think it kind of made us take a step back and go like, whoa, some of the stuff I do is not maintainable.
Yeah.
Now, on the topic of the pandemic, how were you personally able to keep either your routine or switch your routine completely and then stay physically and mentally sharp during the process? Like, were there ever any dips, and how were you able to overcome those dips?
Yeah, there was definitely dips, but I think because my clients needed me, I almost had to stay strong. And when we went then in the UK, when we went into our first lockdown, which was March 2020, a lot of my clients they started getting furloughed. So which is that a term in Canada, furlough? So that means that like your employers basically take you out of work,
Yeah.
but they still pay about, I think they still pay 20% of your salary, but the government pay about 80% of your salary, or the other way around. Yeah, so a lot of my clients had to stop working, or they were away from the office. So all of a sudden their life has changed, but something most of them wanted to keep was their training. So we can like trained on Zoom because it was part of their routine, and it was almost normality for them. And because they're living in the house and all they're seeing are the family, it was actually quite nice seeing a different face pop up on their camera, on their phone. So they really enjoyed training, and I knew how important it was for them. So I had to stay strong because of it. As to whether I've had any dip myself, definitely, especially at the beginning, because there was so much uncertainty. I wasn't sure whether my business would survive it or if it could survive it. And I'd worked so hard to get my business to where it was. It was like almost scary. And especially before the first lockdown, I think that was the worst, because I was meeting clients at the gym, I was training them, and I wasn't even sure whether it was the right thing to do. I wasn't sure whether it was safe for them to come see me and work out. So that was actually the most stressful part. And when our government announced lockdown, I have to be really honest that I was actually relieved, because it was no longer my responsibility. It was no longer my decision to make whether my clients train or not, or whether they come to the gym or not. So I felt like the decision had been taken out of my hands, and also the uncertainty, because leading up to lockdown, I couldn't plan anything. I didn't know what was going to happen next week or the next day. Whereas when we went into lockdown, I knew what was going to happen. I knew we would be at least locked down for about 3 weeks or so. What ended up happening was like a good 4 or 5 months. And also, I guess the worst part was actually, or the most clear point I had, was when my mentor said to me, and in a group amongst other personal trainers, he said, just before the first lockdown was announced, he said to us, you could lose all your clients, and that is still a possibility. But what you need to do is think about what you would do differently if you were to start all over again. And I think just hearing that is actually the worst could happen, and actually rethinking what I need to do, it's almost given me a bit of a release
Mm.
and made me stay sharp, because I had to think, well, if tomorrow I wake up with no clients, what am I going to do?
Right. Yeah, it gets you out of that little hamster wheel routine.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, the pandemic's been interesting, man, because you can look at it through the negative light, and obviously a lot of families can for obvious reasons. But there's so many different angles of positivity that came out of it. It's interesting how that works.
Definitely. I mean, for me, I I'm someone who I like being comfortable, and often I think being comfortable holds you back. But what the pandemic has done to me is it's kind of like made me pull my finger out. And it's also the same with when the wall collapsed. I tend to thrive in very stressful situation. I think I'm almost like a ball. I have to hit the ground hard to bounce back high. And for me, the pandemic has been a positive experience for my business, and also for me in general, because I was working all hours before the pandemic. I was working mornings, I was working evenings, I was rarely home. I was only having dinner with my husband in on weekends. But now I've kind of like made decisions where I only work 2 evenings a week now, and I work home all the mornings, and I make sure I'm home like most of the evenings, and make sure I'm home weekends as well. I'm not like working crazy hours anymore.
Yeah, no, it that's awesome. Like it I think for me personally also it caused me to sit back and, like I mentioned before, realize that a lot of the stuff that I was doing wasn't healthy. Like not like
Mm.
well, I guess my diet's not great still, but like just, being on my phone all the time. I think it was the first 2 months of the lockdown. I think I averaged like 9 hours on my phone, because it might have been in part like shock and just like trying to get away from that shock, but like, you take a step back and you're like, what am I doing? Like I'm sitting down for 9 hours a day. I'm not doing it. My steps, I think I averaged 1,000 steps a day in like February. It's just like so many things where you take a step back, you're like, what is going on? That was the nice thing about this. It gave you a different perspective.
Yeah. Did Canada go into full lockdown?
Yes, yeah, Canada did. It went into full lockdown 3 times.
Yeah.
So
Same as us.
yeah, so it's like that third time was like, "Ugh, what are we doing?" It was so exhausting. You hear the news, you're like, oh, tough.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping this is kind of like we've had all our lockdown, hopefully.
Yeah, no, fingers crossed. In terms of your clients, like, because there's an obvious, and you know this better than most people, there's an obvious link between being physically fit and then being mentally fit. Like if you're exercising all the time, there's a great correlation to being mentally healthy. Did you see a change in your clients once they slowly started coming back after lockdown? Like what was the mental change that you saw?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of my clients, I would say probably half of my clients did continue training on Zoom with me. And those are actually the clients who, when they came back to the gym, they carried on being strong. They've not really lost any strength or lost any fitness or even gained any weight, the ones who continue training. But then there were clients who paused their training, and if anything, they were the clients that struggled with the pandemic the most, because they were almost like waiting for it to be over,
Mm.
and almost putting everything else on hold. So yeah, definitely. Training has helped so many of my clients feel strong and feel better. But the ones that did carry on training, even when they came back to the gym, they already as well, they felt even better, because although they were training at home, it's very different when you like kind of like locked in and you're training in the place that you work, you sleep, where the children are trying to study. So coming to the gym, when the gym reopened, that was just like so nice for everyone, again, because they can be out of the house, and training becomes more of a self-care time for them again, because they're just away from kind of like the place where everything happens.
Yeah, no, definitely. Getting back into that gym the first time was like a breath of fresh air. You were like, "Oh, I don't have to do yoga in my living room anymore." That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about pandemic weight because that is a big thing. A lot of people gained a lot of weight. Me, no, but a lot of people did gain a lot of weight because, like you mentioned, they were kind of just waiting for the pandemic to end. Um, they were waiting for lockdown to end, and they didn't really put themselves first, unfortunately. So a lot of people gained a ton of weight, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's different coping. There's different ways to cope with stress, and that was just comfort food or not exercising and taking a lot of self-care days. That was just a lot of people's way to cope with the stress. How, if you were to give them any advice for people who are trying to lose that pandemic weight, because it's a lot easier to gain weight than it is to lose it, where should they start? Because they've gone through this year and a half of no physical activity. It's pretty daunting to start trying to lose that weight from the get-go. Like, what advice would you give them?
I guess to start small, find something that they can fit in easily, that they've got a really high chance of succeeding. So there's no point of them saying, I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week, when they haven't been going to the gym. They might be better saying, I'm going to go for a walk during my lunch break every day, and that's probably a lot more achievable for them. And just start small and then kind of like build up from it. But it's not just all about exercise, it's also about nutrition as well. So kind of like looking at how they eat at the moment, and just finding small changes they can make that would help make a big change. So little things like, do they actually need to have butter on their toast? Do they need to cook with oil? Maybe they can use like fry lights, like spray oils. And do they need to buy Mars bar? Could they have fruit as a snack? And just little small changes they can make. Yeah, so it's all about finding these little small changes and then building from it, rather than just aiming for like big straight away.
Yeah, no, I feel like, well, there's that saying, right, where it's like you shoot for the moon and you become a star. So I don't even know how it goes, but sometimes you have to shoot for, I don't know, maybe the stratosphere first and then try to get to the moon.
Yeah, exactly. And also maybe even like find a accountability buddy, find a friend who also wants to achieve the same goal as them. So if they're looking to lose weight, maybe they've got a friend who wants to also do the same, and just keep one another accountable and go for walks together, do things together. And often that helps. If you don't have support and you're doing it all on your own, it's so much harder.
Yeah, 100%. And I know people who feel bad about that, who feel bad that they have to have an accountability buddy or like a coach, or they feel bad because they're like, why can't I just motivate myself? Like, what's wrong with me? And it's like, there's nothing wrong with you.
Absolutely, there's nothing wrong. Even I have a coach who planned my workouts for me, and my coach was working with me through the last lockdown as well. So I have someone helping me. So yeah, there's nothing to be ashamed of needing to help, needing to have help.
Yeah, no, it, that whole idea is ridiculous. But I mean, I get it. It's just it's upsetting that people think that way.
Yeah.
So, I guess my last question for you, Mandy, is, and we've kind of answered it here and there, but you know, with lockdowns lifting, people are
Mhm.
going back to full time work, and this is something, and I've mentioned this on the show. This is something that I've personally experienced where I didn't really have a solid 9 to 5 for a lot of last year. And now that I've hit that 9 to 5, it's almost like my body went into shock again because I was so used to having my self-care routine, my exercise routine, like my nutrition routine. Like I had so many routines going during lockdown. And then once you get into that 9 to 5, it all goes out the freaking window. Like, cause I worked at a summer camp, so it was just constant stress from like 8 to 5 p.m. And then you get home and you just stress eat. And then you go to bed, but you only sleep for like 3 hours. And then you wake up and do the whole thing again. For people who are experiencing that, who are going through that kind of weird transition period between having all the free time in the world and then none at all, like what would you want to tell them in regards to physical fitness, mental fitness? Like what should they keep in mind as they head into this awkward transition period?
Well, I actually think the one of the most important thing is actually sleep. I often, when I feel stressed out and I feel overwhelmed, I try to think, why am I feeling stressed out? Why am I feeling busy or overwhelmed? And obviously, often it goes back to me not having enough sleep. And if I can just take care of sleep, I know everything else would be so much better because I'll wake up much more fresher. I'll have time to exercise. I'll think better. I'll make better decisions with my nutrition. I'll be more motivated to exercise. I'll be a lot more productive rather than just being busy chasing my tail. And yeah, for me, just making sure all you need to do is take care of sleep, and that almost take care of everything else for you. But it can be really stressful when things are starting to open up. But just try to find a routine as soon as you can, because you've developed a routine during lockdown, and it's just a matter of just finding that routine again, back to when you're working 9 to 5 again, and maybe think, what were you doing before the pandemic had started?
Yeah, that's great advice. If my listeners want to know more about you, want to know more about your gym or whatever you're doing in the world, where can they find you and your business?
So I'm on Facebook. I'm FlexFit PT on Facebook, and on Instagram I'm FlexFit_PT. I've also got a website which is www.flexfitpt.co.uk. Those are probably the best free ways to find me.
Perfect. And I will put those links down below. Mandy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom with my listeners. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed it.
And to all my listeners, I will see you guys next time.